out to play, Daddy?
This may come as a surprise to those who assume I worship only at the altar of Mario, but the original BioShock is one of my favorite games of all time. I could give you 100 reasons why it's one of the best games we've seen in the new millennium, and I would do it with every bit of the confident enthusiasm with which I laud games like Ocarina of Time. I hold BioShock in that higher regard. So with that in mind, it may also come as a surprise that I had very mixed feelings about 2K Games' decision to release a sequel. The almost shockingly compelling and inventive experience of BioShock seemed better suited to stand alone as the peerless benchmark for modern game design than it is, than to be the launch pad for yet another overdone franchise.
You want some, big guy? Bigger they are, harder they are!
Then again, a big part of me yearned to revisit Rapture, and boy am I glad I did. BioShock 2 stands on its own as an excellent sequel, but those who allow the perfect to detract from the good, expecting the same seminal experience the original offered, will inevitably be disappointed by its follow-up. For better and worse, BioShock 2 just isn't the same game. The 2007 masterwork of developer Irrational Games, BioShock was as much an exercise in philosophical and political theory as joystick precision and first-person shooting. A stunning piece of dystopian storytelling which tests your morality as much as your trigger finger. And the sequel returns players to the once bustling metropolis of Rapture, a city built 20,000 leagues below the surface of the Atlantic. Founded by the eccentric Andrew Ryan, Rapture was meant to be a laissez-faire state hidden from the oppressive grasps of government and religion, a place where man would be, as Ryan put it, entitled to the sweat of his brow.
The finest, hardly. You can't take my feathers!
10 years have passed since Jack, the enslaved protagonist of the original BioShock, tromped through the streets of this fallen utopia, a decrepit sphere of urban decay where citizen and city, and almost living, breathing entity itself, have shared the same tragic disfigurement. In our return visit, however, Jack is only a memory. We instead assume the role of a Big Daddy, the imposing steel-suited leviathans who patrol Rapture to protect the experimental Little Sisters. And we're searching the dark, damp city for the little girl taken away from us years ago by Sophia Lamb, her biological mother and the new leader of Rapture. While the original told a dystopian tale of morality and politics, BioShock 2 is essentially the story of a custody battle. Of course, there's never been a custody battle quite like this.
Big sister doesn't want you playing with me.
One of the great things about playing as a Big Daddy is that it provides a whole new perspective on the relationship between Big Daddies and Little Sisters, one of the most compelling aspects of the original. Rather than simply observing this human yet decidedly inhuman relationship as an intruder, you actually get to be part of it, and that provides for some compelling new gameplay twists as well. Lamb ensures your stay in Rapture is as unpleasant as possible, dispatching enemies in both greater quantity and variety than the original. And as a result, BioShock 2 feels significantly more combat-focused than its predecessor, and fortunately, the combat itself has been improved to keep up with the increased enemy hordes. The basic gameplay hook of BioShock has always been pairing standard FPS weapons, like machine guns, shotguns, and pistols, with plasmids, genetic modifiers which transform the user's freehand into an inhuman weapon itself. The plasmid industry was booming in Rapture, dispensing its genetic magic to the city's citizens like candy from a vending machine, and that's a huge part of the reason Rapture transformed from enchantment under the sea to an absolute nightmare. But fortunately, you'll be able to use all the city's finest plasmids as well, like the Frosty Winter Blast, the Fiery Incinerate, and the Stinging Insect Swarm. Unlike the original, BioShock 2 allows players to wield a plasmid and a weapon at the same time, eliminating the need to switch between them and making you a much deadlier adversary. Most importantly, this allows for effective use in tandem. Blasting an enemy with a fire plasmid and gunning him down while he burns, for example, is a particularly useful strategy, and it's much easier to pull off in the sequel. There's also an online multiplayer mode, which defied my admittedly low expectations. It's actually a lot of fun, and what's really neat about it is that it revisits levels from the original game and gives you the backstory about what happened immediately before Jack's arrival and why the locals were so hostile. Unfortunately, BioShock 2 isn't only improvements. In terms of aesthetics and memorability, its level design is somewhat lacking compared to the unforgettable locales of the original, an issue compounded by the sequel's inexplicably weaker graphics. It's not that BioShock 2 is a bad-looking game by any means. It's still one of the prettier games you'll play this generation thanks to its incredible art design. But given how visually stunning the original was, it's just a bit disappointing that the sequel doesn't take the unsettling majesty of Rapture even further.
Take a breath, son. You did it.